All right, so Tulsi was on Fox earlier this week. I think it's her first appearance since I did the video about how Fox, their guest or their viewers on YouTube basically betrayed her because she finally said something that they didn't like that was truthful but still, not in the same position as Trump, so it's automatically bad. And she was asked about our relationship, so the U.S.'s relationship with Saudi Arabia, and also the repercussions of responding to Iran. And I want to play it because I think it's great. So here it is.
Next, the big thing is the people going to vote for you are not mainly a lot to do with your international relations experience and the times you served. I know you've been very critical of Saudi Arabia and our alliance with them. And yesterday, Britain, France, and Germany all joined the U.S. in blaming Iran for the attacks on Saudi Arabia. Do you believe, since Saudi Arabia has been a longtime ally, that America has a role in somehow making them pay for that type of heinous act?
No. I think we've got to understand clearly the situation that exists. First of all, the United States has no treaty alliance or security agreement with Saudi Arabia. So the United States responding on behalf of Saudi Arabia would really be unprecedented. Second, we've got to understand that Iran is retaliating, that this situation didn't just come out of nowhere. These crippling sanctions have really crippled Iran's economy, and so this response was because they're not able to sell their oil on the market. The danger of continuing this tit for tat, this cycle of mutual retaliation, where does it end?
Right.
It ends in an all-out inferno across Iran and the Middle East, costing us American lives, costing American taxpayer dollars, increasing the refugee crisis in the region. That's not something that serves our interests or anyone else's.
Yeah, I think you would also agree, though, between Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the financing of that, they create more unrest than any other player.
I make no excuse for what Iran does, but I think our interest needs to be what's in the best interest of the American people and our national security. And I think it's important that we keep that at the forefront.
So I know you.
All right, so I've said repeatedly in the past that one of the reasons I don't take a lot of reception to, I guess what's the proper word for it, supposed attacks on other countries that seriously anymore is because I live in one that is literally doing that daily in 7 of them. They always try to make you seem like, oh my God, how could you not care about Saudi Arabia and what happened over it? It's like, well, how could you not care about the people in Yemen that Saudi Arabia starves or has starved for literally 4 years now, in the worst genocide in modern history, that has occurred, that has been supported now by a Democratic president and a Republican president. And I have yet to see a single person who supported or voted for Trump renounce their support for him based off of that. So, the idea that we're some individuals who are very concerned about people is laughable, to say the least. But more to the point, she mentions that we don't have any kind of agreement with Saudi Arabia to even get involved in that capacity to begin with. And that's what I was saying about how the U.S. has this really bad problem with sticking its nose in places under some almost God complex idea that it's going to automatically make things better by being involved. Which, when have you ever seen us respond militarily and things improve? Now, when we give, some kind of financial aid or humanitarian assistance, that's a different story. But the sanctions we put on Iran, we can go down the list. We've done this to Iran, we've done this to Venezuela, to North Korea. We're just screwing with people, and we've negatively impacted the lives of individuals who live there, who we claim are already under these despotic regimes, but then we do nothing to improve the situation by making it harder for them to live through our sanctions. So it's all the same repetitive cycle of us saying that their leaders are causing the problems and then contributing to the problems by imposing our sanctions. Now, that host, whose name I didn't check to look at, it doesn't matter. He has a bit of verbal diarrhea there. He's like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the blah, blah, blah. He says it so quickly, and what he's trying to do is get her to basically admit that Iran is this big sponsor of evil, terrible, horrible things. It's and we've been over this 1,000 times. It's the U.S. trying to play like they're the good person with the moral high ground to stand on. Where the U.S. has the high ground like Obi-Wan, but in actuality, we're pretty much in the exact same position. As I've said before, we're funding a literal genocide, and we have sanctions crippling the lives of individuals in multiple countries that we claim, as I said earlier, are places that are led by these awful individuals. Now she responds in a very quick manner. She's like, "Hey, I don't try to make amends for what Iran does," and that's pretty much as good as you can get, because when you're trying to have a diplomatic relationship with a country, you can simply say, "I don't back this. They do that. I don't. That's it." All this stuff about condemnation and the uh, they must feel the suffering of what they've caused and made to occur. It's all more rhetorical trash, because in actuality, if the U.S. had such a bad issue with the funding of terrorists, it wouldn't even be friends with Saudi Arabia to begin with. But why is that the case? Because they give us money for our weapons. Let me tell you something. The biggest way to affect the U.S., if you're another country or some person who actually wants to strike out against the American government, is to deprive them of funding, because it's the most they care about. We'll let a country bomb somewhere and kill thousands of people like it's nothing, but the second you start screwing with oil, we had a story where the reason Iran was under hot waters was because that strike that we still can't even prove was from them caused the biggest spike in oil in 30 years, some several decade accomplishment, and that's literally the only reason we care. If it was, say, a bomb that dropped that killed, some, whether it's one person or 100 or 1,000, it would have been another day in the hood. And Gabbard knows that, and that's why she doesn't get tripped up over those kind of stories. So she's still my top person when it comes to international issues. There's been a lot of domestic stuff. I'm kind of that feels not really totally defined, but it is what it is, and I'm just glad we got this nice interview. It's good to see them get called out over their morality, virtue signaling stuff. A lot of times we see the media and people will say, "Oh, well, they're right to be concerned." But it's like, yeah, they appear to be concerned, but if you actually look at the fact that they ignore stories having to do with humanitarian issues affected by the U.S., you can see how completely not even focused on that they are, which makes this all the more amusing and all the more true.